The Megatsunami that devastated ancient civilizations, the real flood myth. The flood myth is everywhere. In ancient Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest written texts in human history, dating to around 2100 BCE, describes a great flood sent by the gods, survived by a righteous man named Utnapishtim who built a boat and saved his family and the animals. The biblical account of Noah follows nearly identical narrative structure and was written during a period when Israelite culture had extensive contact with Mesopotamian civilization. These two versions alone would suggest shared origin, but the flood myth appears far beyond Mesopotamia. The Hindu tradition describes Manu, warned by a great fish to build a boat and survived a universal flood. The ancient Greeks described Deucalion, son of Prometheus, who survived a flood sent by Zeus in a chest, landing on Mount Parnassus. Chinese mythology describes the hero Nuwa plugging a crack in the sky that caused catastrophic flooding, and the hero Gun and his son Yu who spent 13 years controlling the floodwaters. Indigenous peoples of North America, Oceania, and Sub-Saharan Africa have their own flood traditions. The myth is genuinely global. The scientific explanation begins 20,000 years ago at the peak of the last ice age. At that time, sea levels were approximately 120 meters, nearly 400 feet lower than today. Vast areas of what is now ocean floor were dry land. The North Sea was a landmass called Doggerland, connecting Britain to continental Europe. The Persian Gulf was a fertile valley. The Black Sea was a freshwater lake. Southeast Asian islands were connected to mainland Asia. These areas were inhabited by early humans, and between 20,000 and 5,000 years ago, they were drowned. The sea level rise was not gradual or uniform. It was punctuated by episodes of catastrophic meltwater pulses, periods when massive ice sheets collapsed suddenly, and enormous volumes of freshwater flooded into the ocean, raising sea levels by several meters in short periods. Meltwater Pulse 1A, around 14,600 years ago, raised global sea levels by approximately 20 meters in less than 500 years, a geologically instantaneous event. Coastal peoples watching the sea advance over their lands within living memory would have experienced something very much like a great flood. Doggerland, the North Sea plain, was gradually flooded over thousands of years, but geological evidence suggests it experienced a catastrophic event around 6,200 BCE. The Storegga Slide, a massive underwater landslide off the coast of Norway that generated a megatsunami. This tsunami struck the remaining Doggerland coastal areas with waves estimated at 25 meters high, flooding large areas and possibly killing thousands of the Mesolithic people who lived there. This event may have been transmitted as a flood memory through generations of North European hunter-gatherer cultures. The Black Sea flood hypothesis, proposed by geologists William Ryan and Walter Pittman in 1997, suggests that around 5,600 BCE, the rising Mediterranean Sea broke through the Bosporus sill and flooded the Black Sea basin, then a freshwater lake with salt water. The inundation was rapid, potentially adding nearly 10 cubic miles of water per day to the expanding Black Sea. The fertile shoreline of the freshwater lake, which may have been heavily inhabited by early agricultural communities, was flooded rapidly. This event, Ryan and Pittman proposed, is the origin of the Noah and Utnapishtim flood traditions. Global distribution of flood myths makes most sense if we understand early human settlements as concentrated on coastlines and river valleys, exactly the areas most vulnerable to sea level rise and flooding events. As populations were displaced by advancing seas and transmitted their experiences through oral tradition across generations, the story of a great flood would have traveled with them. The remarkable similarities between flood myths from geographically separate cultures may reflect not a single event, but a common human experience of watching the sea take back the land. The submerged world under today's oceans represents one of the greatest unexplored archaeological frontiers. The prehistoric coastlines where the Ice Age populations lived are now under 60 to 120 meters of water. Technology is only now reaching the point where systematic underwater archaeology in these areas is possible. What we will find when we can properly explore these drowned landscapes, the settlements, the artifacts, the remains of early coastal civilizations, may transform our understanding of human prehistory. The flood myths have always told us that something important was lost when the sea came in. We are only beginning to look for what it was.